Welcome back to BYoungMinistry.com, to another blog and to another podcast. Today we continue in our study of Mark, chapter 10. We're in verses 41 through 45, which reads, "When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, 'You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.'" That's Mark chapter 10, verses 41 through 45. Today we return to our study of Mark 10, where James and John had just requested of the Lord the most prominent spots in his kingdom. James and John, along with Peter, were at the transfiguration of the Lord Jesus on top of Mount Hermon earlier. And as a result, they were allowed a privileged inside view of the future. Rather than developing humility in them, the experience caused their sense of importance and their pride to soar. In verse 41 of today's passage, we read, "When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John." The other disciples were furious in response to the request made by James and John. Their indignant disposition was fueled by the fact that they thought they were being relegated to second fiddle. No matter who we are, we have all struggled with this same problem. When we are defined by our sinful, self-promoting, arrogant ambition, we are naturally defined by the flesh. What we all need is God's definition of leadership. Choosing to be defined by the fallen led the disciples to argue, even during the Last Supper. Meanwhile, the cross awaited the Lord Jesus. In verses 42 through 44 of today's passage, we read, "Jesus called them together and said, 'You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all.'" It is not God who trains us to position ourselves for status and notoriety. We were born with this fallen condition. I've seen this even among Christians, not realizing that we are all the personal property of another. We are his servants and slaves. The Lord used the words diakonos and doulos, translated servant and slave. A diakonos is a call to a life of serving others rather than self. A doulos is a call to become the slave of the Master, the Lord Jesus himself. By using these two different words, the Lord Jesus revealed that our ability to be a servant leader comes out of choosing to be his slave. Out of such a posture, we discover how to truly lead others. According to God's culture, true authority arises out of serving others. When we are willing to give ourselves to meet another's need, something remarkable happens. A bond is created with that person. The selflessness with which we operate garners trust and creates in those whom we serve the desire to respond in like manner. This is the only way authority is realized. But we must not be motivated by gaining a following. Those who have authority are those whom people have learned to respect and trust because they have been served by them. The world approaches leadership as if it were a pyramid. The guy on top is on top of the pyramid and the lesser people are below him in the pyramid. The Lord Jesus turned the world's approach upside down. The Lord Jesus used the words servant and slave to describe his approach to leadership. This just underscores the fact that we arrive upon the correct definition of things when we go God's way. All other approaches take us by the hand and usher us into the presence of self being enthroned. And self will always wreck what was at one time potentially good. In verse 45 of today's passage, we read, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Christ leads by serving. Those who want to turn it around have no following. The Lord Jesus led by serving and served by laying down his life for us. This is what grips our hearts to follow him. It was at his cross that we saw the culmination of his great selfless love for us. The word used here for ransom means the price paid for a release of a slave. This is the only place this word is used in the scriptures, along with Matthew 20, which is a parallel passage. He gave his life as the price paid for the release of a slave. The slave is you and me. And he paid the ransom to God, for God is the judge who had to be satisfied. It was God who had to be pleased or propitiated. The path then to glory in God's kingdom is through humble selflessness that leads to sacrifice. We only get to the place of leadership by seeing ourselves as servants and slaves. And the Lord Jesus is the ultimate picture of the servant. The one who had every right to authority became the one who gave up everything to meet our needs. God does not need our service. He is so complete and so self-sufficient and so overflowing in power and life and joy that he glorifies himself by serving us. The Lord Jesus was enabled to be our servant by being the slave of the Father who is in heaven. He did this by taking on a human body and seeking us out, and then telling us that he did not come to get our service, but to be our servant. This demand of his for us to be his servants comes out of his knowledge that leaders serve. This command, as are all of his commands, are for our benefit. We can go with the world's way, or we can go with God's way. I dare say God's way is far more effective. My friends, I trust this blog and this podcast are helping you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, shoot me an email at BYoungMinistry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.